So in this video, we're going to be looking at how do we do algebra with our special angles, and we'll be doing them exactly, so using those exact solutions to our special angles. So first, we need to figure out what is sine of 45 and what is sine of 30 before we can actually add them together. So to do that, it's helpful to draw a little unit circle. And we'll start with the sine of 45. So on your unit circle then, you're going to want to draw a 45-degree angle. So that's 45 degrees right here. And then you turn that into a triangle, right? So there's a y component and an x component to that. And the y component is the sine. So that y piece there will be the sine of 45. And if you remember from the special angles we did, sine of 45 is equal to 1 over root 2. So just write that down here. Sine of 45 is 1 over root 2. All right, then you want to do the second one, sine of 30. So you draw another unit circle. Draw your 30-degree angle on there. 30 degrees looks more like this, right? So that would be a 30-degree angle. And you make that a little triangle, so you go straight down and over. And the y part here is the sine of 30. And that y part, if you remember, is a half. So sine of 30 is equal to a half. Okay, so what we're adding together then is 1 over root 2 plus a half. So I'll write this down then here. Sorry, here we go. There we go. So the sine of 45 is 1 over root 2. And the sine of 30 is 1 over 2. Now to add these two together, I need a common denominator. So a good common denominator to pick would be 2. You can multiply this fraction by root 2 over root 2. And that'll give you 2 times root 2 on the bottom, which is equal to just 2. So that gives me 1 times root 2, or root 2 on the top. 2 times root 2, which is root 2 squared, or 2 on the bottom. And then I have 1/2. Add those together and you get root 2 plus 1 on top, all over 2. And that's as simplified as it can get. We've got this square root in here, right? So we can't simplify any more than that. Otherwise, we would lose our exact answer and we'd just be dropping into decimals and stuff like that. All right, here's a trickier one. The first thing we need to notice about this one is it's got a cos squared in it. So this is kind of a new thing. So I'll just kind of put it in a box maybe over here. So if you see a cos squared theta, what that means is that you're actually taking cos of theta, so cos of your angle, and you're squaring the entire thing. The reason why we don't just write it like this, cos of theta squared, is because it's not clear if the angle's being squared or if the entire cos theta is being squared. So this here, we never write. This takes a long time to write because you have to put the brackets in and then the square and everything. So often we don't write it that way. The fastest way to write it is cos squared theta. But what it means is all of the cos of your angle, all of that is what's being squared. So just a heads up, that's what we have here. All right, I'll erase this because I'm going to need some space. Okay, so we need to figure out each of these pieces. I need to figure out cos of 150 first. So I'll make a unit circle for that. And we'll need to do sine of 330, so I'll need a unit circle for that. Put that one here, so sine 330, and we need to do cos of 300, so I'll need a unit circle for that too. All right, so let's start with the cos of 150. So you want to draw 150 degrees. So 150 degrees is just 30 degrees away from 180, so it should look kind of like that. There's 150. The cos part is going to be the x part of that triangle here. That's a 30-degree triangle in there. The x part, if you remember, is equal to root 3 over 2. So that's what cos of 150 is, except watch out, that's in the negative x-axis, so you need a negative sign there. All right, sine of 330. So 330 degrees, that's all the way from your x-axis all the way over to just 30 degrees shy of being at 360, right? So it's pretty far. That's 330 degrees. So when I make that a little triangle in here, there's my triangle. It's a 30-degree triangle. I'm looking at the sine of 330. I'm looking for the y value here. And the y value is going to be a half. It's the short side of the 30-degree triangle, but it's negative because it's in the negative y-axis, right? We're down in below the x-axis, so those are negative y's. All right, last but not least, we're going to need cos of 300. So cos of 300 is 60 degrees shy of 360, so that's 300 degrees there. And we're looking for the cos part. That's the x piece of this triangle right here. So this is a 60-degree triangle. We're looking for the x part. That's going to be the short side of the 60-30 triangle. The short side is a half, and it's positive a half because you're in the positive x-axis here. So that's going to be positive a half there. Okay, once we have those pieces, we can put them all together. So the first thing I have is the cos of 150, and it's being squared. So cos of 150 is negative root 3 over 2, but that whole thing is being squared. So that's what the squared there means. And then we're subtracting sine of 330, that's negative 1/2, times cos of 300, which is positive 1/2. All right, let's simplify a little bit further. So first, negative root 3 squared, that's going to make just positive 3 on the top, right? The square root of 3 squared, it's going to be positive 3, negative 1 out front, squared is going to be positive 1, so we get just a 3 on top. On the bottom, the 2 also gets squared, so that'll make a 4. So I have root 3 over 2 squared, just makes 3 over 4. And then I have minus negative, so that's going to be plus. 1 over 2 times 1 over 2 is 1 over 4. So what I have here is 3 over 4 plus 1 over 4. It's going to make 4 over 4, or just the number 1. So that whole one just simplifies to 1.